for the mass of something. If it's more massive, it takes longer to pass through this mass spectrometer. And these organic molecules are hundreds of atomic mass units in weight. Could they be the fragments of some alien protein or some alien DNA? We don't know, because the instruments on Cassini were not built to identify exactly the composition of these organic molecules. All we know is their weight. But from these data sets, there is no question in my mind that complex organics are being synthesized in that ocean. Which brings me to my fourth main point, my fourth ingredient in this cosmic apple pie, and it is that these ocean worlds are nature's laboratory for organosynthesis at water-rock interfaces. Complex organics are being created on those worlds today. The only question is, are they life? Well, there is one big hurdle we must face if we were to determine if those organics are indicative of life, and it is this. What if extraterrestrial life doesn't use the exact same building blocks that we use? To my knowledge, there is no preordained reason why we use the specific letters in our DNA, or the specific 20 amino acids that we use to build proteins, or even ATP as our energy currency. And so what if an alien life form used something different? How can we hope to recognize it? So in this last portion of the talk, I'll give you a couple of ways that we're thinking about looking for what are called agnostic biosignatures. That would be biosignatures of life as we do not know it. So, first, life is far from chemical equilibrium. It's a fundamentally disequilibrium process. And so this, again, is like a mass spectrum with mass on the x-axis and abundance on the y-axis. And in an abiological setting, a setting that does create hydrocarbons and organics, but does so purely under the laws of chemistry, there is a characteristic bell-shaped curve to this mass spectrum, right, which is determined by the laws of thermodynamics. But life, being highly out of equilibrium, liking to use certain organic molecules over and over and over again, like for instance ATP might be one of these spikes here, characteristically out of equilibrium. You know, things that should just not be there under a purely chemical system. So exobiology might use different molecules from us, but they might be equally out of equilibrium, and we would be able to identify such exobiology in this fashion. Also, life is highly chiral, or homochiral. That means that we use only left-handed amino acids in biology here on Earth, and only right-handed sugars. Okay? And it may be that some alien life form uses right-handed amino acids and left-handed sugars, but if we find a mixture of organics on some other worlds, like in a sample from Enceladus, and it's purely one-handedness of one class of molecule, that is very indicative of something puzzling going on, probably of life. Because abiotic settings that create amino acids and create sugars will tend to create them in equal proportions of left and right-handedness. And a very similar concept applies to our information-carrying molecule. This is a strand of DNA and its characteristic double helix. It turns out that DNA has this repeated negative charge on its backbone, created by the phosphate ions on that backbone chain. Now the reason why we have this repeated negative charge is so that the DNA doesn't fold in on itself. You might imagine DNA having some random distribution to its charge, plus, minus, 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 plus. And if that were the case, DNA would not be able to be a linear tape that could be easily read and then passing on information. If it clumps together, it would be completely useless. And so people have been designing experiments to perhaps look for repeated charges on extraterrestrial materials, not knowing whether the materials are DNA or not, but just looking for that repeated charge. And so all of these examples of agnostic biosignatures are really examples of looking for complexity, looking for some degree of surprise, right? It would be surprising if you saw a soup of organic molecules completely comprised of one-handedness of a class of organic, or with a repeating charge of negative or positive, right? When there are two options all the time, whether you should have a positive charge or a negative charge, or actually there are three. You could have a neutral charge too. And so the last type of universal biosignature that I like to look for is complexity, not in a single molecule, but in a molecular suite. So scientists have been able to characterize the network of chemicals in a purely chemical system. This is very random. Well, the chemicals are interacting with each other. I'm going to bond with you, I'm going to react with you, sort of at random. In biological systems, networks of chemicals look radically different. And this again is because biology likes to use certain molecules over and over and over again. We love to use ATP, for instance. We love to use glucose. We love to use pyruvate as starter molecules to build other things. And that's what you see here in these nodes. So the topology to a biochemical reaction network is very much more complex than this random, purely chemical network. So this brings me to my fifth and final takeaway or ingredient in the apple pie that we'll bake together soon. And it's that searching for inherent complexity can open us to the possibility of finding life as we do not know it. And so with that, let me put up our 5 major ingredients and start baking this apple pie. All right, so we're going to open our ovens and we're going to toss in star stuff, but not just schnapps. We're going to also make sure that there is a redox gradient there, because life is electric. It completes a geochemical circuit. We're going to make sure that there are sufficient inorganic elements, our iron, our nickel, our molybdenum and tungsten, to do that electron transfer. And we are also going to make sure that there is a good, nice water-rock interface, because that might be the geochemical system that might bring life into existence. And finally, after we've baked this apple pie and we take it out of the oven, we are going to search it for the signs of yumminess by looking for complexity. Because we don't know what we might have baked, but it's probably going to be complex. It may be life. And with that, I'll take your questions and remind you that I am on Twitter if you want to follow me. That's my handle. And I also have the Strange New Worlds podcast, which you should definitely check out on iTunes and Google Play. Thank you very much.